Is the movie over? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. Oh man, just watching this movie just lulled me right out there. Oh man. Okay. All right. Got to talk about this. Got to talk about Cry Macho. How about before we cry Macho, we cry for something to happen? Because there's not a lot of things in this movie. I'm reminded of a line from the Mystery Science Theater film Starfighters, where Mike says, I think there was more nothing in this film than any film we've seen. Now, I can't honestly say that about every movie I've seen, but I can definitely say that over the last couple of months, maybe even year, I think this is the most nothing I have ever seen in a film. Just so much does not happen watching this movie. Geez, I am racking my brain trying to think of what to talk about when it comes to this movie, because there just isn't a lot to really go on. It's just kind of there. I guess I can start out just by saying that I would not classify this as a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's Clint Eastwood as a director, and Clint's one of the most solid hands in the director's chair that you're ever going to find. I'm going to talk a little bit about his direction here in a minute, but so when he puts a film together, it's going to be competent at the very least. But man, I'm also going to say I'm noticing a slight pattern in the movies in recent years that Clint has both starred and directed. You don't see it as much with the films he just directs, but the ones that he stars in and directs, I'm noticing there's a slight pattern in the characters that he plays. Broken down, depressed old men who are dissatisfied with their lives or have made mistakes with their family and friends and is just waiting to die but has to rediscover the goodness of life. I mean, this one, The Mule, the Trouble with the Curve from a few years ago before I even started doing the reviews. I actually liked Trouble with the Curve, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I'm starting to notice a little bit of a pattern here. It's one of those things that you kind of want to ask him, Clint, you doing all right there, buddy? You all right, man? We need a cats in the cradle this, because, we're worried about you, buddy. We're worried about you. So, okay, what's the story of this one? So, Clint Eastwood plays Mike. That's his name. I had to think about it for a second. A broken down old cowboy who has no friends, no family. He's burnt every bridge. He was once a great rodeo rider, but suffered a back injury and got hooked on drugs and pills. We learn all this through one of the clunkiest exposition scenes I've ever witnessed. The playwright in me was cringing, because you learn as a playwright, one of the hardest things to do is figure out where to put in exposition and how to do it in a way that feels natural. This is such French-made exposition. And for those who are unfamiliar with the term, French-made exposition refers to, in French plays of the French Restoration, the plays of Molière, for example, where the opening scene would be two maids walking around going, well, as you know, the master is very upset. His mother has been sick for quite some time. It's like, these two people know the story already, so why are they recounting it to each other? They're doing it obviously for the audience's benefit. And the same thing happens here. The very first scene is him going to work at a dude ranch. He walks in and he's talking to his boss. And the boss goes, well, Mike, as you know, you were once the best bull rider, and I was always worried someone was going to steal you away. But I'm not worried about that anymore, Mike, because you're broken down and you're hooked on the drugs and blah, 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 blah. It is such an unnecessary scene. You could have cut this scene completely, started the movie out with the following scene. We would have lost nothing. He tells us his backstory later on, And even if he doesn't, I think we're all hip to the fact that Clint Eastwood is going to be playing a broken down, grizzled, old veteran of something who has lost his lust for life. I think we're all clear on that. You don't need to give us the exposition in this spoon-fed kind of way. What was funny is I was even thinking, as I was watching it, that, you could have done all this with one of those exposition devices where you're panning over a bunch of newspaper clips, and then they do that. They do that. They go to his house, and they're panning over, like, all his family pictures and newspaper clippings about how great he was, and a framed newspaper clipping about him being bucked off a horse and breaking his back. Why the fuck would you keep that framed in your house? Like, why would you have that one framed? I don't understand why you would have the news article about the most physically painful point in your life framed in your living room so that you can be reminded of it every day. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, 1 year later, okay, the same guy who fired Clint Eastwood comes to him and says, I want you to go to Mexico and basically kidnap my 13-year-old son who has been living with his mother. His mother is, they never say what she is, but you get the feeling she's like a Bond villain or something. She's got to be in the drugs or something. She lives in a big house. She has henchmen. They never quite say what she's up to, but it can't be legit. But anyway, Clint Eastwood's friend says, please go get him. Bring him to me. I love him. I want to raise him. Yeah. You know right away this guy ain't on the level. You know right away this guy ain't on the level. So you're thinking, okay, you know what this is going to be. This is going to be like that Ed O'Neill film from like the 90s where he's the stepdad and he has to go bring the kid home from boarding school and the kid fights him the whole way, and through hilarious road trip misadventures they learn to bond. No, the kid is pretty hip to it. He's like, all right, let's go. And so they try to tell you that, the kid's like a horrible person, just showing that neither parent knows him very well. The mother is trying to convince Clint Eastwood that the son's a horrible person. He's not. He's just a 13-year-old kid. And, it's like, okay, let's go. So they go on the road trip, and for some reason the mother suddenly decides she wants the son back, so she sends her henchmen to chase after them, and the police are after them. Now all this sounds exciting. It's really not. It's really, really not. It's a lot of driving, stopping, drive some more, stop some more. I usually like a road trip picture. I like road trips as, in general. But the action is repeatedly thwarted here. They, of course, stop over for an extended period. Like the whole end of, like, I guess what would be Act 2 of this film is where they get waylaid into a small town and take up with a kindly widow who is taking care of her various granddaughters. So you have a love interest for Clint Eastwood and a love interest for the kid. And, of course, they're happy there. They make it seem like they're there for years. They're there for like a couple of weeks, but the way the montages and whatnot are shot, it's like we're, 5 years later, but anyway, so they're happy there. Life is good, but uh-oh, here come the bad guys looking for them, and they've got to run again. Once again, like I said, they make it, this makes it sound like this is an exciting, pulse-pounding, on-the-run, bonding through adversity kind of film. It is just not. It's a lot of, we're going this way. We're going to go that way. Uh-oh, there's the Federales. Let's go here. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's Clint Eastwood, the kid, and the kid's pet rooster, Macho, hence the name of the film. His cockfighting rooster, who is like, I don't know, Macho's kind of the best character in the film, to be completely honest, because he's kind of the most out of nowhere. You're watching some of these, and I don't know how smart chickens really are. I have a friend of mine who raises chickens in her home in California. So I don't know how smart or how well trained a rooster can actually be, but this one is pretty fucking well trained. Like, there's a scene where their car gets stolen and the two of them have to walk to the next town, and the chicken's like walking next to him like a dog, It's also an attack chicken. Every time a bad guy, twice the main henchman of the mother tries to kidnap the son, and they are saved by the attack rooster in moments that can only be described as amazingly hilarious. That, I mean, how do you hold your head up at the henchman's ball? Like, when you have to go to the henchman union meeting, and you're in there with, like, Bond henchmen or, you know, Marvel henchmen, and they're like, oh, man, you know, how did you get defeated? Well, Captain America and the Falcon came in and threw their shields all over the place and beat the shit out of us. Oh, man, that's rough. How about you guys? We had Bond cornered, but then he pulled out a laser pen and drilled a hole in the roof and it fell on us. Oh, man, that's a great getaway. How about you, buddy? How were you thwarted? Fucking attack chicken got me. You can't go back there. Like, you can't go back to the henchman's ball after that. Like, you're blacklisted. Like, that's, yeah. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm also going to say this. I'm going to say some, and I don't mean this to sound too insulting. It's going to sound insulting, but I really don't mean, especially if it turns out he dies before this review goes up. I swear to God, I don't know what the face of death looks like, but I'm pretty sure it's Clint Eastwood. There's some moments in this where he turns and does, you know, when he finds the kid, like, sleeping in the back seat, and he turns and there's this low angle shot, and it's down at him, and he's just like, what are you doing back there? It's like, the devil! Just once. You know what I want? What I would love to see? And again, I'm not wishing this. Clint Eastwood, despite what you may think of him, you may not like his politics, you may not like him as a person. Fair. Totally fair. I don't like his politics either. But you cannot disagree that he is not only one of our most influential movie stars, but also one of our most influential directors. He truly is gifted. You don't have to like the man, but you have to acknowledge the talent, whether you approve of it or not. So I'm saying this with the deepest respect. I'm not trying to be a jackass here. But what I would love more than anything in the world is for just once, before the man passes, I want to see a movie where Clint Eastwood plays a kindly, loving grandfather. Not anyone with a dark past, not anyone borne down by the weight of, you know, hundreds of years of hard living. I just wanted to see kids get, like, a Christmas movie. Like the kids getting out of the car and going, Grandpa, come here, kids, give me a hug. You know? It's like Boris Karloff, only scarier. That's what I want to see a Christmas movie where, like, he's sitting there reading the night before Christmas, you know, up on the roof there came such a cloud. Like Beelzebub after a smoking binge. But I would love to see that. I guess that leads me to, like, the one thing I can really say positive about this movie. And again, this goes back to love him or hate him, agree with him or disagree with him, you know, share his politics or don't. One of the things you have to acknowledge about Clint Eastwood is he is a brilliant director. And the film is beautifully directed. It's simplistic. It's a simple film. So deceptively, you would think that's an easy film to direct. Set the camera up, let it go. No, there are some breathtaking shots in here. Clint Eastwood has a gift for making nature look gorgeous. You know, I can't think of another director. Robert Redford, perhaps. And they always say John Ford had a flair for it back in his day. But I can't think of another director who can make just exterior shots that look so beautiful. And I'm not talking about, like, shots like, you know, the Grand Canyon or the sweeping majesty of an ocean or something like that. I'm talking about, like, dirt roads, you know, broken down little Mexican towns. You know, he makes these shots just look breathtaking and gorgeous, and you find yourself kind of just kind of being lulled by the pretty images. And again, it's a fucking dirt road, but he makes it look good. There's an absolutely gorgeous shot in here, probably the best shot of the movie, where he's driving to Mexico to go get the kid, and he's driving, and in a field just adjacent to the car is a herd of horses, and they're like chasing after the car. So you've got the car and the horses, kind of this beautiful juxtaposition. It's a great fucking shot. It is a great fucking shot. And for a moment there, I thought it might have been just one of those shots you got by accident. You're filming just some driving footage, some B-roll, and that just kind of happens, and you're like, oh my God, we got to put that in the movie. But no, because they show it from the reverse angle. So this was a planned shot. This is a shot they did from multiple angles. So, yeah. So the film looks amazing. The film looks beautiful. And that is not easy. Other than that, I can't think of a whole lot to really talk about in this movie. And again, I want to stress, this isn't a bad film. Not by any means. I've seen bad movies. This isn't a bad movie. It's just mediocre. It's a familiar story. It's, again, Clint doing Clint. And there's nothing really wrong with a familiar story. As the old saying goes, there are only so many stories in the world, and it's just how you tell them. But I think it's fair to say that if you're putting out a Clint Eastwood movie like this one, you're aiming for a specific demographic. I think that's a fair assessment, right? I don't think you're going to get... You're not aiming this movie at the same audience that you're aiming Suicide Squad at, right? It's not to say that there isn't crossover. It's just saying, in terms of marketing and who this is meant to appeal to, I think it's fair to say we're looking at a somewhat older demographic. If that is the case, they've seen this film before. They've seen the old person bonding with the young person and becoming the family they never had and rediscovering the joy of life. So there's nothing new here. Maybe that was the point. Maybe they were aiming for kind of a familiar tone, just, hey, sit back and enjoy this movie that you're gonna like kind of thing. Maybe? I don't know really, but that's kind of where we're at. It's not a bad film, but I can't think of anything in it, despite the attack rooster and the beauty of the shots, that's really worth discussing. It's just kind of there, so that's all I've really got to say. I wish I had more. I really do. So, final grade for Cry Macho. I'll go a C. Solid C. Not a C+, not a C-. Solid C. Again, if you like Clint, or you're looking for kind of a calming movie to maybe put in the background, or you just kind of want something to ease out of the day, maybe this will be a good view for you. But if you're looking for something that really has something to say, or really makes use out of this once in a lifetime kind of directing talent, I don't think this is it. So, sorry, Clint. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. So, there you have it. So that's Cry Macho. I will say this. I'm also going to reluctantly kind of end this on a little bit of praise. So I'm not a fan of streaming services. We've established this. They're not my thing. I think they're unnecessary in today's society, and I know that eventually they are going to become the predominant form, and I'm not going to have any choice but to join up. I get that. I'm hip to that transaction. But at the moment, I'm just not a fan. But I will say this. I am very thankful that I picked up the HBO Max this year, even though it's buggier than a bug full of bugs driving in a bugmobile. Because I'm thankful that I've gotten to see some of these movies from the comfort of my own home and didn't have to pay the money for them. Because this would have been one I would have been like, oh man, I paid, however much for a movie ticket for this as opposed to the monthly subscription. So I'll end, praising the streaming service. for the moment. So there you go. Hell has frozen over. So that's all I've got to say. That's my take on Cry Macho. Thank you for joining me. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.